Thank you, Riddhi, and thank you everyone here for being here for this session. It's an honor to be here to speak about a cause that I think I started more than 20 years back. And I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to be able to share it with you all here. So before taking any more time, I'm going to straight away talk about buildings and places. And we are here, we've been hearing a lot about stories on music, stories of food, and so much more: craft, saris, outfits, fashion, clothes, everything. And I'm here to represent the built environment. We are in a hall. No matter what happens, we are always a part of any space and place. And that's really where I'm going to start from. So, geographical indication for the built environment. How do we identify building stories? We're going to talk about where places meet design. We move through cities without truly seeing them. We experience spaces without knowing their stories. Unlike art, fashion, food, architecture remains largely experienced, unspoken, undocumented, and origin, intent, ideation, design fades into the background of everyday life. What if that changed? What if our buildings carried a mark of their origin? GI is fairly simple. It's a symbol of authenticity that speaks to the unique qualities of that particular region. It is familiar to any shopper who's choosing to buy Mysore silk over generic silk, Darjeeling tea over black tea, Roquefort cheese over blue cheese, cognac over another drink, and of course we spoke about wines in so much detail. The histories and knowledge of food is essential, and it is easily communicated through their names and tags. Unfortunately, buildings don't play that game. The world of GI demonstrates the potential for product differentiation and the added value that the product is bringing in. The GI sign on a product means that the specific region has an essential quality, and that is unique, and it is not found anywhere in the world, which is what makes that product very, very special. And that, of course, leads to driving tourism, economies, and so much more. When it comes to the built environment, unfortunately, the built has moved away from the environment. The construction industry is a key polluter, contributing to over 30% to greenhouse emissions annually. In the long term, there is a shift that is needed to locally manufactured products, and buildings, of course. It's the much needed game of the hour. Severe environmental degradation globally is driving a shift towards local production. And we, as inhabitants of spaces, we need to recognize this importance. The built environment shapes our experiences, the homes we live in, the workspaces we work in, the schools we learn in, the public spaces, and the leisure spaces that we enjoy. These is what make up our cities, our spaces. It's the buildings that create our built environment. Unlike the other arts, fashion, music, however, which are all a matter of choice. You could be interested in music, you could be interested in food, you could be interested in fashion. But buildings and architecture and the built environment is not a matter of choice. We have to occupy space at all points of time, whether we choose to or not. Every building has a story and a sense of belonging. Tag it to know it. Victor Hugo, a very famous writer, very famously said that the city is a writing and we, the users of the city, are the readers. However, while we read everything around us, we read media, we consume content, we consume social media, we rarely ever pause to read the building, the design, and what is the story behind it. Unless it's there's a Taj Mahal, or there is the India Gate or the Gateway of India, which are landmarks. We never really pause to see the building next door. We never really pause to find out what is the story of a building. We may go to a restaurant and occasionally say, oh, I love the design. Or you go to a popular landmark and say, oh, great building. But the house next door, the home that belongs to you, the hut in Kerala, the houseboat in Kashmir, we've never really paused to find out what is the building story. And this is where GI tagging adds so much value. Who was the architect? What was the architect's design intent? Why is a building made a certain way? Why do buildings in Rajasthan look a certain way? Or why does Kerala architecture take a certain form? The building next door is seldom noticed, understood, forget ever being talked about. I must take a moment actually to thank the India Today group for giving this whole opportunity to India Today Home, where we actually talk about architecture, design, and homes that play a very, very important part today. The architects and architecture need to hold their ground together. It is usually the architecture that gets talked about and the architect stays behind the doors. Can GI sign be a mark of pride in buildings? This is what the world has been doing for centuries. This is collected from all over the world, from UK to the US, Australia, and everywhere, where buildings are tagged, where buildings have a plaque, where buildings talk about what is special about that building, along with the architect who created it with the complete story, why it should be there. This is all of Manhattan. But the local humble building still stays unknown. The art world has it very sorted. Every time you visit an exhibition or an art gallery, there will be, for every art piece, the name of the artist, where it has come from, what is the origin, what are the materials used, and what is the story behind that art. It's all there. But what happens to buildings? Again, they form the canvas to our life. There is so much to be talked about. There is context. There is influences, regional influences, materiality, the jalis. Within India, there are more than 100 types of bricks that are used. There are more than 50 types of jalis that are used that belong to India, that do not belong to any other part of the world. Today, in different parts of the world, jalis are given different names. But the jali is the primary source of air, water, and privacy. And that whole notion is just getting diluted over time. There is also building stories. The Chettinad bungalows in Tamil Nadu and the mud enclosures of Kutch and the houseboats of Kashmir all have instant recall. But we do not, that whole tradition can completely get lost in the modern thirst to create signature buildings that will stand and look different. The Heritage Trust in TAC has conducted thousands of listings documenting buildings in areas that are remote, far from access. These are the Jalis of Jaipur. There are also modern institutional buildings that are in New Delhi, in other parts of the country, that are distinct for the use of their local materials, the regional materials, the locally available brick, the local way of making the jali, all paying homage to regional context. While architects try and create signature buildings, the contemporary buildings around Central Vista are still trying to carry the signature combination of yellow and red sandstone. Again, this is a very subtle way of carrying the GI tagging forward because there is no formal way of doing this. In Bombay, the Art Deco mansions along the Marine Drive have been partially lost to what the city is today. So there is a new trending tag amidst this world, the modern world of hashtags we are living in. It is not just another hashtag. It is the GI tag that the built environment needs today. These buildings carry a distinct impression of where they came from, where they are situated. But these buildings are not seen, not heard, not known, and mostly get talked about within the architectural community itself. But it is important that as consumers of the built environment, we all know how they are carrying our rich cultural tradition forward, even while they're being interpreted in its own way. While a single essential quality may be enough for a GI sign, An appellation requires the entire production process to be unique to that specific place. GI tagging is very different from trademarking, and I could see that conversation has sort of filtered through all the different threads that have been spoken about today. GI mapping is about protecting and promoting not just design, but also culture, also tradition, also communities. If anything, GI tagging is going to safeguard the interest of the communities. So buildings, while buildings are a visual phenomena that is mostly eaten with our eyes, little to nothing is done to help them be known, be seen, and be heard. Imagine what the GI sign can do for buildings. GI has the potential to bridge the gap. GI has the potential to give architecture, design, and the built environment a voice today. Not only will it drive tourism, knowledge, but it will do so much more in preserving culture. By making these stories visible, we take architecture out to the open, enabling it to be known by the world at large and not just by the architects. Let it be celebrated, let it be heard, and let it be understood. And hence, as a byproduct, the architects will do a better job in creating better spaces, better cities, and better places for all of us. Thank you.